Awesemo baseball fans. Happy Saturday. Nice little slow Saturday afternoon, building some baseball lineups here. Ready for a live before lock, leading you directly into the 7:05 main slate lock. Here with my pal Gundacker, getting ready to talk some baseball. Gun, how's your baseball season started out, buddy?
Hit and miss, and it's usually all on the back of pitching. If I nail pitching, I'm going to make a lot of money. If I don't, I'm not going to make a lot of money. So I've had some really, really strong. Got a couple top fives I haven't banked yet, and then a couple of nights where I get a guy that absolutely gets shelled or injured in the first couple innings.
Yeah, it's been a definite roller coaster ride with pitchers. Some guys giving us short starts with the limited spring training and all these different variables on top of the normal variables with pitching. So yeah, I'm right there with you. A bit of a roller coaster to start the year. Some good, some very, very good up at the top, some very bad at the bottom. But plowing through, and it's been a blast. I'm enjoying the start to the season. We've already seen some ridiculous performances, but we got a great slate to talk about here today. We're brought to you by Odd Shopper, guys. Hopefully you guys are familiar with our sister site over there. We'll get into a little bit more about them in a little bit. We've got some free content up on the site for you guys, although I think all the other slates may be started yet. I'm not entirely sure, but jump over to the site if you're looking for, MLB player projections for the slate we're about to talk about, NBA ownership projections, NHL top stacks, and MMA fighter rankings are all free on the site today. So get over there, check that out, hit the like, the subscribe, all those fun things down below there. Helps us out, helps you guys get notified when we go live with any of these shows. And we're doing so much these days that it's good to have that, because even I lose track of when we're getting a show out and going live, or we've got tons of video on demand content. It's pretty ridiculous these days. But let's dive right in. We've got 6 games on the slate, so we've got a little bit of time to talk through each one, individually. Any overarching concerns, Gun, as far as like weather issues, anything like that, or anything that you're just seeing as kind of a theme across the entire slate today?
No, it's almost your atypical Coors slate, right? Run of the mill. That's going to grab a bunch of ownership on a smaller slate. And pitching, we got a couple fun names. We got a couple who's that, and then a couple names where we wonder, after one game sample size, have they found something? Have they lost something? Were they unlucky, lucky? So I did spend a little extra time going into each starter's first start to kind of see what we can take away from it. Mm-hmm. And the only like concerning guy for me was Urias, and I see he's grabbing some ownership. So that would probably be a fun discussion.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into him. I had similar concerns. I wrote about it in my article today. I think I went something like 4,500 words in the article. It's up on the site if you guys want to check it out. I wrote through a bunch of different teams, made my home run picks as usual. But yeah, the Urias one is really interesting. I think it's still, I think Verlander answered more questions in that first start, I think, than Syndergaard did, but they both pitched through their allotted pitches, around 80 pitches, those first starts. So that's an interesting situation. Tyon is a guy who came back from what they're trying to come back from this year. He did that last year. It's a lot of question marks on the board and not a ton of security as far as what I'm seeing. So yeah, I'm treating pitchers with kid gloves today, kind of focusing in on bats, getting different with some of that, and maybe kind of riding the top few pitchers and projections who are mostly the names that we just brought up. But let's dig in. Let's jump into the first game. We do get the opportunity to talk about Syndergaard right off the top here with the Angels taking on the Rangers. And for me, we've got the Angels at about 4.5 runs. This game was somewhat even up. Angels about 4.44 in my latest update, 4.14 for the Rangers on the other side. My latest update might be slightly different in the card that we've got up on the graphic there. But we've got Syndergaard taking on Taylor Hearn. Syndergaard, obviously, premium righty, never really was the pitcher that some people seem to remember, this like 30+% strikeout guy. He hit 29% on the upside one year. He's going to be back. He's taking on Taylor Hearn, a lefty for the Rangers here. What are you seeing in the pitching matchup in this one, Gun? Take us through it. And what do you see with Syndergaard specifically, I think, is really the question there.
Yeah, so Syndergaard went 5.1 against the Astros. He threw 76 pitches, only got 1 strikeout, but he did have a 14.5% swing and strike rate on a 75% first pitch strike, which is good. Strikeouts should be generated from those 2 numbers alone, 12 ground balls to 4 fly balls. So you might expect some progression in the strikeout number, normal pitch mix that you might expect, a little fastball, sinker, slider, changeup, stuff like that, a 46% whiff rate on 21 changeups thrown, a 17% whiff rate on sliders. So I do think the strikeouts will eventually come. But we also, because of just 1 strikeout, we do get some juiced metrics like xFIP and BABIP that, or because his BABIP was what it was, we also get an xFIP and a Sierra that might look a little wonkier than it should. So I guess there's reason to be cautious with what to expect going forward, but I am a little bit optimistic that he'll start picking up some strikeouts because he was able to miss some bats. On the other side, Taylor Hearn went 4 innings against the Rockies in his first start, 76 pitches, saw 8 ground balls to 1 fly ball, 6 strikeouts. That's what you want. He got to a 16% swing and strike rate. And again, a 1-game sample size, we're going to see some numbers that we can't truly trust, but it is all we got to work with. So it is something that's worth looking at. That would be well above his swing and strike rate from the last 2 years. So we might project regression on that. However, if he can keep it around 10 to 11% and, or at least match what he did in his first start, I do think this Angels lineup, although fun, does have a lot of strikeouts, especially against lefties. So I actually put a little action on Taylor Hearn over 3.5 strikeouts, and I think that's something that's probably still out there. And I might get to a little bit in DFS. So I do think both pitchers have a little bit of strikeout potential that may be unsung on the surface, but I also think both offenses can do really well against the other pitchers' weaknesses or unknown areas, and they popped the lid out there in Globe Life again, and we have seen these games turn into shootouts.
Yeah, I was actually getting, I think it's partially just based on some of the small sample stuff, but, against Syndergaard, the Rangers were popping a little bit in my home run model and my power metrics when I wouldn't normally expect them to. He was never a guy who really gave up a ton of home runs regardless of what else was going on. So I'm kind of curious how that works out. I feel like I'm going to have some Rangers stacks here. They're not overly popular on either site. Syndergaard's drawing middling popularity, 15%ish on FanDuel, 20%ish on DK. I'm good with playing both sides of that, I think. Are you going to some Ranger stacks against Syndergaard here? And if so, like, what are your proportions to Syndergaard versus Rangers bats?
Yeah, so I've been kind of high on the Rangers offense as a whole this year. I was actually on them against Ohtani the other night. The only thing that held me back was Mitch Garver and Jonah Heim were both catchers, and you probably guess which one I had more of, while the other one hits a grand slam. But I think this is a really fun offense, especially if we can kind of neutralize what has been more of a pitcher's park by opening up the roof out there in Globe Life, and even backing up Syndergaard. It's definitely a beatable bullpen here. So I'm on both sides of the fence really when it comes to pitchers and hitters in this game. Short slate, just kind of playing everybody, and this is a spot that I see multiple ranges of outcomes. So I will get to some Ranger stacks, looking for guys like Brad Miller, Semien Seager, Adolis Garcia as my preferred options. No, Mitch Garver does dampen the lineup a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. You're taking that home run bat out of that lineup. But yeah, I'm with you on the Semien Seager, Adolis Garcia. I'll throw Nate Lowe and Willie Calhoun into that mix. I could even get to some Cole Calhoun down toward the bottom of the lineup for cheap and for no ownership. $2,300 Cole Calhoun against a righty on FanDuel, $3,400 on DK. I can justify a few shares of that just based on some of the power and the splits in the past. As far as Taylor Hearn goes, just circling back to him real quick, because he is a value consideration on the DK slate. He's 8,000 on FanDuel, not drawing that much ownership. He does rank out as pulling less ownership than his probability of being a top pitcher on the single pitcher site. He's 9% likely to hit that, only 3% owned. I think he's still more interesting on DK. I don't know how much I need him on FanDuel, but on DK, he's like our, call it 5th or 6th pitcher overall by probability of being a top 2, but he's easily our 2nd ranked overall value pitcher. And the other guy is Mark Leiter, and you don't want any part of that in terms of success rate. So Taylor Hearn at positive leverage on DK as a $6,000 SP2. Were you getting to some shares of him?
Yeah, a lot actually, probably more than I should, and I might dial that back. But I just think there's a lot of strikeouts we had in this Angels lineup.
Yeah, absolutely.
You good?
Yeah, I lost you there for a sec. I'm not sure if that went. Not sure if that was on my end or on your end. But yeah, we'll pick that up. My model actually agrees with you on the strikeouts there, and there's a 25.7% average strikeout rate from that Angels starting lineup for last year across the board. So definitely something on the bone there. What about those Angels bats going against him, though? Are you getting to any of these guys, and how do you play it with so much weight on the top end? It's a really top-heavy lineup between Ohtani, Trout, Rendon, and even Taylor Ward on FanDuel is drawing some ownership. How do you play this lineup?
Yeah, it dives off the cliff. I lose a dives off a cliff. I lose a lot of interest once you get past the cleanup spot. I would grab a little Stassi and Joe Adele. Adele's shown some pop lately. Maybe he's going to live up to the potential here. But you talked about that overall K rate. If you isolate just versus lefties, it probably increases to 28%. It's got some potential. So a very boomer bust spot for a starting pitcher. And like I said, I'm going to cover my tracks here, have both sides of it, and probably be over the field in both spots here. But I just think at 6K, you don't need to do a lot for an efficiency site where the pitching pool is kind of shallow as it is. It's one of those spots. If he gives me 12 fantasy points, I take it as a dub. And if he does spike for a big strikeout game, I'll take it. As far as picking on him, looking at last year's metrics, a 260 plus average allowed with a little bit of a home run problem. Hey, Mike Trout is Mike Trout. Yeah, he's going to be in a lot of non-Taylor lineups. Anthony Rendon, Shohei Ohtani, obviously. I'm with you on Taylor Ward, or at least I'm with the field on Taylor Ward on FanDuel. Just an incredible opportunity, batting cleanup against some high OBP guys. So he might accidentally get some RBIs, even if he doesn't hit for a lot of power. And then Stats, Dell can bring up the back end. I don't have a ton of interest in the Duffys, Velasquez, and Tyler Wades of the world. We know what Velasquez and Wade will bring to the table. It's really not a whole lot of pop here. So it's really just 1 through 4, and then as we stretch 4, 5, and 6 can get in the conversation.
Yeah, and I see that the exact same way. If you needed to sell me on another guy at the bottom of the lineup, I could be talked into some Tyler Wade as a wraparound. 2,700 on DK, 2,100 on FanDuel with multi-position, 354 on base across. It was only 145 plate appearances last season, but 17 stolen bases for a guy who can get on base at that clip. As a wraparound play back to guys like Ohtani, Trout, Rendon up top, that intrigues me at least enough to grab a few shares if I'm building a bunch of Angel stacks. So I would throw him into the mix. Totally with you on Velasquez. Nothing really to see there. Anything else to call out from this game before we hop on over to the next one?
Yeah, no, I think we've covered all our bases. What are you doing with Syndergaard? Are you going to take some shots here?
Yeah, I expect I'll have him in the crunch that I ran. I think he was like my 3rd highest or 4th highest. It was bouncing around, and I was kind of going for pretty similar distributions. He landed 3rd. So I've got 22% Verlander, 22% Urias, and 14.3% Syndergaard, 12.8 Tyon. Matt's around the same level as Tyon, and then some scraps of Flexen, Taylor Hearn, and Hunter Green. I don't really care if I don't get any Hunter Green. The other 2 I'll take some shares of. That's across 1,000 lineups, though. So, I mean, this is something that's going into the sorter. We'll see how it actually sorts out in the wash, but I'm sure I'll have some Syndergaard.
Okay.
What are you thinking in terms of like across 150? How much of a percent would you be looking at?
I started with a baseline of 25. I do like gut ownerships, and then I'll go reference the where the field's at on some of these guys. And I was expecting the field to be a little lower based purely on results, and then seeing that he had some swing and miss stuff in that last game that just didn't convert to strikeouts, and that'll happen against the Astros. I was hoping to get some potential leverage on the unknown, but I don't have the warm and fuzzies on it, so I don't want to get too heavily invested. So I might stick around 20%.
Yeah, I'm always a big prove it guy, and I, like I said, I saw more from Verlander on the board there than I did from Syndergaard, but I like all the metrics that you read off, which is, that's definitely appealing. And if we're getting a Syndergaard at 24% ownership with a 24% probability of being a top 2 for 79 versus Verlander at 97 with a 32% probability and 51% ownership, that's kind of interesting, right? You can play a little bit of the leverage and pricing game within those numbers and come out with a pretty well-built card of lineups that includes both of those pitchers. But it's a good reason to, I think, get to some shares of Syndergaard when he's at that price, that probability, even at just efficient ownership. You're not really gaining a ton of leverage on the field with that play. And it's similar on FanDuel at 8,200 versus 10.5 for Verlander. So yeah, I think it makes sense to get to. How about the pitchers in this next game up with that we're going to talk about? I mentioned where I'm at on the Yankees starter, Jameson Taillon. I think it's on FanDuel, he's at 8,600. And, is like I said, I'm getting to some shares of him. It looks like I'm going to be around the field in the sort. I might try and push up over that. 7,000. He's drawing a ton of attention on DK. What are you doing with Taillon? And then are you getting to any Tyler Wells at all against the Yanks here?
No on Wells, but yes on Taillon. First, at first crunch, he was my highest own. And I think the drastic difference is I'm way away from Julio Urias. So that 25% that the field has, I'm probably just going to full fade it, and it's got to go somewhere. And right now it's on Tyone. In that first start, we saw 72 pitches, so we might get to 85, 90 on a good day. 6 strikeouts, 16% swing and strike rate. What I really like was the 75% first pitch strike, mostly fastball slider. However, the Blue Jays are pretty righty heavy. The Orioles are throwing out 4 lefties, and that, if we look at his recent numbers for Tyone, he doesn't walk righties, but he can get into trouble against lefties. So maybe we start seeing that rear its head in this game, and maybe we waste some pitches. So that is my main concern, is just him being able to stay ahead in counts, especially against these lefties like Mullins, Santander, Rugi, and Anthony Bembone to a way lesser extent. But yeah, right now he's probably going to be my highest on DraftKings pitcher, just points per dollar, 7K. I don't need a whole lot there, and I feel pretty safe about his floor, though his ceiling may not be as high as we want it on a normal slate.
Yeah, and it might just be a slate where we're not getting that extreme ceiling performance. It basically depends on what Verlander does, or if Urias is completely healthy and pitches deep into the game, maybe he could get there. Otherwise, I don't think we're really seeing a standout massive scoring game here. So I think just safety is kind of enough with some of these guys. And I think in this matchup, Tyone is capable of giving us that. He's ranked 3rd on the board on FanDuel, 3rd on the board in DK in terms of probability of success. Drawing a little bit of over ownership on the DK slate, but I think it's just fine with the price at 7,000. I think you're just paying a little bit of an ownership tax to get to the quality there. He's actually slightly positively leveraged on the FanDuel slate, so definitely worth getting to at the higher price over there. So I'll definitely have a good share of him on FanDuel. Are you seeing the Yankees bats kind of the same way I am, the same way that the site is, in terms of them being somewhat intriguing, but looks like they're also drawing a pretty fair amount of ownership up and down the lineup?
I was hoping, last night would maybe hot hand, touch the stove, get burned, don't go back to him. But Judgy's in the lineup here, and it's still Orioles pitching. It's still Tyler Wells, so he'll give you some power, especially to righty. So I'm gonna be there on the Yankees. I try to take bias out of it, but I think this Yankees offense will not be a 1-run per game offense, and I'm just gonna keep going to the slot machine and pumping quarters in here, and hopefully the night it cashes out, they won't be a top 3 on stack.
Yeah, it's ignore the logos on our hats, guys. This is a good spot for these bats tonight. They're a better offense than they have been so far this season. It can be frustrating to roster them. They're built around the home run. They're built around getting on base and hitting that 3-run home run. And they're spectacular getting on base. When the home runs don't come, it is a difficult lineup to roster. But that's when we get the price drops. That's when we get the ownership drops against the terrible pitcher in Camden Yards. As far as like particular bats as you're stacking Yankees, we're getting 20% ownership on Judge across both sites. Everybody else in the mid-teens, the low teens as you go over to DK, down into the single digits for some of these hitters. No Higgy, no Kyle Higashioka catching in the lineup today. Looks like everybody else is pretty much there. Hicks leading off, no LeMahieu. Is what I'm seeing. Any favorite bats that you want to like thread together as you're building Yankee stacks? Any guys that you're focusing on as far as offsetting some of the popularity of some of the main bats?
Yeah, it's hard to offset what the field is on, because I'm right there in having Betty Davis eyes for Aaron Judge, because Tyler Wells last year, man, a 55% fly ball rate to righties, 27% line drive rate to righties. If you're going to let Aaron Judge put the ball in the air, it's probably going to go pretty far. So Judge is my favorite. To double down on those specific metrics, probably grab Stanton, the power righties. Wells did leak a homer up to a lefty this season, so Rizzo maybe keeps that bat hot. The Gallo metrics say that he should start turning it around, so he's the ultimate slot machine guy in this lineup for me. And then hopefully Donaldson doesn't double play for us. Hicksy leading off is kind of a wrinkle in this Yankees carousel of who should lead off. I think it should be DJ LeMahieu, but it's his day off, so we'll see if they are done with Donaldson at the top, because right now I am. But yeah, I think it's 1 through 6 or 1 through 7. Gleyber's look better than this 7 hole is rewarding him for. If you're watching the at bats, he's really doggone cheap on FanDuel. A couple really cheap prices on FanDuel. Hicksy at 25, Gleyber at 24. It's just way too cheap for the parking opportunity. Even Joey Gallo, so can't resist.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on the Joey Gallo train. I'll be here talking about him when he's hitting, 114 in mid-July with 11 home runs, and I'll still be saying he's one of the better hitters in all of baseball because he is. Guy draws a ridiculous walk rate. I don't care about batting average; hits for a ton of power. So give me some Joey Gallo, give me some Gleyber Torres. I'm happy to get to some of the less popular Yankees. Anthony Rizzo, I think, is still a spectacular left-handed hitter. I don't consider him a consolation prize in free agency. I kind of wanted them to bring him back, so I love getting to him under 10% ownership, kind of cheap on both sides. Hitting third between Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. Yeah, sign me up. Hicksy is a leadoff man. He's always had that reputation, sees a ton of pitches, 330 something career on base. Donaldson is like a 350 something career on base, but I agree. I kind of want to see what Hicks can do up there. Switch hitter up at the top of the lineup too. Anything for the Orioles going against Tyon here? We got Cedric Mullins leading off 30-30 season last year. Santander, Ryan Mountcastle, Trey Mancini. Any love for any of those Orioles bats?
Not like an extravagant amount. The Yankees, they're going to back Tyon up with arguably the best bullpen in baseball, if not the number one. It's been top 2, top 3. They did have to go to a lot of bullpen arms yesterday that they probably didn't plan for, but I do think Clay Holmes, Chad Green, even Michael King and Ron Marinaccio, he got warmed up last night, but he never came in. Those are still decent guys that have at least a day of rest. So the Yankees have a real knack for cutting games in half. So if I did grab some Orioles, either I'm hoping that all heck broke loose, or I'm just hoping to see a mistake pitch. And I think against Tyon last year, bugaboo home run against lefties. So Cedric Mullins, Anthony Santander, they might take advantage of that metric here. I know they pushed back left field, but if those lefty pull hitters can still get over that right field wall, maybe Santander is the biggest threat.
I was waiting for the Rougned Odor revenge game. Do you think he remembers that he was on the Yankees? It was such a brief time. I don't think he actually.
He does, but I don't know. Would you rather be on the Yankees or have a beard?
Well, considering how much I hate shaving and that I grew it like the day after I left my old job, that's a tough call, actually. I think I'd rather be on the Yanks still. I do like some other bats in here. Austin Hayes, I think, is a nice power stick for only 1% ownership, 2,200 on FanDuel, 4,000 on DK, kind of disparate pricing, but I like getting to him. What you talked about right through the heart of that lineup, I think can be rostered against this pitcher, but I do like the Yanks pen. Like you said, I think they will go that short game route, particularly if Tyon gets in any trouble, they go to those premium arms real quick. We've done a lot of talking through the first 2 games. Let me clean up some business that I probably skipped over. Mike's been yelling at me out. I haven't been paying attention. But let's see. Guys, you can get access to all the great Awesemo tools and content for almost every DFS sport out there. I think we cover pretty much everything. I mean, they just launched USFL and we rushed that up to the site, and we've got killer projections from Matt Kajeski. I think we could take the word almost out of this thing, but we're covering so much for only $29.95 on the Awesemo Plus Platinum plan. You guys got to check it out. It includes all our premium content, all of our tools for every sport that we cover, includes player projections, ownership projections, all the top this or that tools. It says top golfers in here, but like top stacks, top pitchers, all the different models that Alex has. Top drivers if you're a NASCAR fan. It includes the lineup builder. Fantasy Cruncher is always a paid add-on, but totally worth it with our packages. They're easy to find. It's the Plus FC version. If you're only here for baseball, MLB DFS, you can sign up for one of our MLB only plans, or you can check out the $4.95 Express plan. It includes rankings. So it's rankings that are based on our projections, rankings that are based on our ownership. I've talked about this a few times with EMAC and some others. I think for baseball, it's so directional. It's so that you don't actually need the number projections. It's just, hey, these are the good stacks. Those are the bad stacks. These are where the ownership is. You can build that way. So the Express plan for baseball is really, really effective, I think, Gun. For $4.95, not too shabby there. So stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. And let's jump through I'm going to read the odd shopper one here real quick so that we can just kind of fire through some more games, because that's what everybody's here to talk about. So we'll jump through this one as well. Make your best bets in 30 seconds or less. That's actually my line. I came up with that one in a meeting. I like to see it in the plug here. Love reading it for the first time. Odd Shopper features hundreds of bets daily to give you the edge you need in betting NBA, NHL player props. We've got MLB coming soon with expected win percentages, ROIs included. Odd Shopper uses the same DFS projections we use here at Awesemo to filter out the best bets available. Odd Shopper also features a parlay builder now, so you can jump on there. You get optimized parlays. You can use our arbitrage tool to figure out the best bets, risk-free, guaranteed profit across the industry. It's just killer tools if you're a sports sports betting fan. If you like making wagers at sportsbooks, you can find the link to Odd Shopper in the description of this video. It's Odd Shopper with 2 S's in the middle. It's our sister site. There's a tab for it if you go to awesemo.com up at the top. Highly recommend checking it out if you're a sports bettor, guys. So make sure you jump on there and make smarter bets today. All right, Gun, let's jump back into talking some baseball now that the business is out of the way. We've got the Cards going up against the Brewers. Steven Matt's on the hill for the Cards. Us New Yorkers know Steven Matz pretty well if you watch any Met games. Adrian Hauser taking the mound for the Brewers. Talk to me about these two pitchers. Anything here?
3 innings for Matz in that first start. Did get to 75 pitches, 5 strikeouts, 7 earnings, 9 hits. So he was all over the road. Did have a 63% first pitch strike, a decent swing and strike rate. Had a 1.2 xFIP, a 2.69 Sierra, with a 6.67 BABIP. So it sounds like he was super, super unlucky. But again, we tend to get really weird numbers on a 1-game sample size. But it's all we got to go off of to see kind of where they are from last year to this year. The usage on the fastball, slider, curveball, changeup was mostly consistent with what we saw last year, and so was the velocity. So I can still, with a sense of confidence, lean on last year's numbers and those metrics. And those metrics were you could have problems with righties, a 4.42 xFIP, a 250 plus average allowed, a couple of homers here and there. But against lefties, a 28% K rate, 2.6 xFIP. Average was a little on the high side against this projected or this confirmed Brewers lineup. Just Colton Wong batting from the left batter's box. So we're going to key in on those righty numbers. And I think I'm going to play both sides of the fence here, although at 9K for Matz, I'm way, way less enthralled with that number. He's just kind of in the back end. If we're going to expect a 20% K rate, there are some strikeouts in Adames and Keston Hiura and Mike Brousseau, guys like that. But those guys are also going to flirt with 200 to 250 plus ISO. So both sides of the fence for me, I'm probably more on the Brewers bats than Matz here, just because of the price for Matz. So I don't mind that. Hauser on the bump for the Brewers. He saw 76 pitches, got him to 3.2 innings in that first outing, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, 4 hits, and 3 ground balls to 4 fly balls, almost a 12% swing and strike rate, but just a 55% first pitch strike. You like to see that come up. xFIP was 5.5, Sierra almost 5.8. No really redeeming qualities based on what we saw in game 1 to want to divert what we know from Hauser in the last couple of years. If you play him, you're hoping he eats some innings and maybe flirts with a win at 8.6, get you 16, but certainly not somebody that's a priority click for me at any stretch of the imagination. He is a ground ball guy. He can eat some innings. But man, this Cardinals team, man, they might be for real, Terry.
Yeah, I really like this team. I've been writing about them pretty much since the start of the season. I just love the heart of that order with O'Neill or Arenado, O'Neill, and Goldschmidt there. I think Tommy Edman's got some skills. I wrote way too long about Tommy Edman. If his power comes around and he goes from 11 home runs to 20, 25, he's going to be a lethal player with his speed and if the on base comes up a little bit. So I like getting to some of the card stacks. I agree with you on the Matz assessment there. Not really in love with them. I'll have some, but I'll probably be under the field, probably lean into the Brewers bats a little bit with some McCutchen off the top, some Willie Adames, some Hunter Renfroe, some Keston Hiura in the middle of the lineup there. It's mostly about the top few hitters, but down toward the bottom, are you getting to any of these lefty-righty platoon guys like a Mike Brousseau or anybody like that to pad out some stacks and fill in around the edges, or are you just kind of focusing on the guys up at the top?
Yeah, I think Brousseau was sent to earth to hit lefties and nothing else. So this is his chance. 2,300 on FanDuel, really cheap shot at a pop. So 245 ISO last couple of years against lefties. We remember the Aroldis Chapman at bat. Yeah. So yeah, I think a contact pitcher, or more so a contact pitcher like Matz, could definitely be playing with fire against a guy like Brousseau.
Absolutely. And then on the card side, as far as hitters that you're looking to stack against Hauser here, are you looking to get to him, or does the ground ball kind of impact that? Like they get cut into a little bit more than they would normally be by his ground ball rate and his contact metrics for me in my home run model. 5% barrel rate, 35.6% hard hit, and a 1.4 degree average launch angle last year, 59% ground ball rate. I still like this Cards lineup. And if they're going to be low single digits across both sites at affordable prices, I'm going to try and figure out a way to jam some of these into my build here. Are you doing the same with the Cards, or are you just kind of taking what you get with them? How are you handling them?
Now I'm with you on the surface. Like he eats innings, and you're going to get a bunch of ground balls. But we're giving the Cards almost a 6% chance to be in a top stack at less than 2% ownership. So there's positive leverage to be had, and there's no reason not to go out and try and get some of that because they have shown throughout the first week of baseball that they're for real. I think Nolan Arenado, Tyler O'Neill, Goldie, all Carlson, all guys worth having. So I think if this is one of those spots, if they were like higher owned, I'd stay away just because Hauser can be annoying and just get through a couple 4 or 5 innings with a couple of hits here and there, but no big power concerns. But because we are getting a big discount on ownership, we don't have to give up much equity to be positively leveraged in this spot. So I'll match you at probably, I was thinking 6-7% on Cards.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. I'm just bear with me just half a sec. I was trying to get something into my model to fix a sort there. Looks like we're okay. Anything else to call out from this game before we move on? And guys out there in the chat, if you guys have any questions, drop them in. We can always bounce them off of Gundacker. Seems like kind of a quiet day in the chat. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. We're at 66, 360 some odd people watching. We can get that up over 100 before the end of the show here, Gun, I think at least.
Mm-hmm.
Butthole Jenkins is asking, Gundacker, cut the crap. Who is it? Who is your feel it in your plums home run call of the night? Who does the bomb detector like? Well, let's take care of the home run call before we move on to the next game. Who does the bomb detector like?
So this one, I mean, this is kind of unfair, but it's Aaron Judge. So it was Aaron Judge yesterday, and he got the day off. So this is a makeup spot.
There you go. All right. I went super chalk yesterday with Mr. Shohei Ohtani to get off the schneid, and he hit me too. So happy about that one. Who the hell did I take today? Oh, I actually went against Syndergaard today, and I took Corey Seager today because
you think they'll pitch to him? Because
I hope so. It'll be nice. I got a nice home run rating on him, so yeah. Hopefully he sees a couple here and gets a chance. But yeah, I'm a little heavy on that Rangers lineup against Syndergaard, a little bit more than I thought I would be. So we'll see what happens with that in the next half hour or so. Let's move on over to the next game here, though. We just went through Cards and Brewers, so we'll go to Coors Field. Ooh, fun one. The Cubbies and the Rockies. My approach to Coors, and I brought this up on shows and in articles the last couple of days, when the people are there, I tend to go in other directions. When the people aren't there on the bats, I tend to go to the bats. How are you seeing Coors Field today? Because I'm seeing people on the bats.
Yeah, I'm all out on the pitchers, and then I was sitting around 20%. I feel like a chalk donkey in those numbers.
Oh, wait. Hold on. I do have breaking news for everybody. If you're looking for the best cams, fun, hot girls, and boys, 18 plus video chat, click on all those little lips and those arrows and all that fun stuff that's going on in the chat right now. Uh-oh.
Right, you had me real nervous for a second. I thought
somebody scratched. No, we actually got a lot of the big news out of the way, like no Mookie Betts in the Dodgers lineup and some other pieces. We got that out of the way. But yeah, continue, pal. Sorry for the cutoff there, but yeah, we're not going to either one of these pitchers. No reason to roster Mark Leiter Jr. and Coors Field sends a tell and not at all. But talk to me more about those bats. I cut you off there.
I mean, my baseline before I looked at ownership was kind of 20% on each, just because it's a small slate. Seeing where the field ownership is now, I kind of want to water that ownership down a little bit, but I don't want to get completely off because there's only so many ways to go. So I'm just trying to create some low ownership variance in the lines that I'm eating some chalk here, and that's mixing it in with the lower owned stack. Maybe instead of 5x, I'm going 4.2s, 4.3, something like that. But it's really hard to just throw your hands up and walk away. At least for me, it is. With that said, Senzatella can be a troll. Like he can just eat in, kind of like Hauser, big ground ball rate, doesn't really surrender a ton of power. So you're kind of hoping he doesn't last long, and bullpen and Coors just activate. And I think that's really the blind approach with Coors, really any slate.
Yeah, that's really, really what I'm looking for. And yeah, for sure. When I say that I'm not going there, I mean, I'm going, I'm going to try and undercut the field. I'm definitely going to have some of these lineups, but I don't need to be at, in the 30% on, hitters like, let's say Chris Bryant at 22%. I love Chris Bryant, but I don't think I need to be at that level. But if I'm at 12, 15% Chris Bryant across a handful of stacks, I'm perfectly comfortable with that. And that's true for some of these bats. On the Cubbies side, Ian Happ is a guy I've been trying to get to through most of the season. It looks like he's pulling decent ownership on FanDuel at 20%. Still only 15.4 for 3,900 in the middle of that Cubs lineup there. Is Ian Happ a hitter that you like? And who else are you looking at in terms of some of these Cubbies?
My favorite guy has been Frank Schwindel and Seiya Suzuki, especially on FanDuel. I think they're just a little too cheap. Happ getting a cleanup spot in Coors. 1 through 6 has really been the bulk of my ownership here. Wisdom will historically just break my home run model because of his ridiculous power numbers, but just an insane strikeout rate to boot. So maybe this is a spot. Sensatelli, he's going to pitch the contact. Maybe he'll tap into that. But like I said, that big ground ball rate just kind of takes a lot of expectations out. And I'm just hoping there's a quick hook on him, or he's just having a anomalaic performance where he's getting got. But past that, I think it's 1 through 6 would be my preferred Cubs to target.
Yeah, got to throw Seiya Suzuki in there, new arrival and immediately starring in Chicago there. And this Cubs lineup's been frisky. They're kind of interesting here. As far as Rockies bats specifically, I'm getting the best home run mark on either side of this one with CJ Cron. That's not really anything new in my model. He always pulls a nice mark, but I'm getting decent totals around Connor Joe, Chris Bryant, Ryan McMahon through the middle of that lineup. So it looks like I'll be pulling some of them through just how everything works. I am going to try and undercut, like I said, but if you guys see me out there with tons and tons of Rockies, don't think I'm lying to you. It's just happenstance through how these things come out in the wash. But I think if I have my choice, I'm going to try and get a little bit below the field, but I do like the spot for both of these offenses. Anything more to call out here for this one before we move on?
Nah, I mean, Coors is Coors, man. I tend to be numb to the results and the process, and a lot of it's just ownership based decision making.
Yeah, absolutely. And Coors is Coors for sure. Moving on to a game that I think is an intriguing spot to talk about. One of the top end pitchers of the slate, but definitely somebody who's still got some questions to answer, I think, in age 39, coming back from Tommy John after missing 2 years. Kind of a ridiculous story that I don't think anybody's ever really done before, at least not at his level. Justin Verlander taking the mound for the Astros, going up against what I think is a capable Mariners lineup, but no Mitch Haniger in the lineup tonight definitely is an impact to the upside of power on this team. Chris Flexen taking the mound for Seattle. Decent results from Flexen last year. Nothing great DFS wise, but got through an okay season coming back from the Korean League. But the strikeouts really weren't there, and I just want no part of him going up against this deadly Astros lineup that is just impossible to strike out. Are you seeing Flexen kind of the same way? And then just give me the rundown on Verlander. What'd you find out about Verlander today?
Yeah, Flexen looks like he's picking up where he left off. Contact guy. It's the Astros, really no redeeming qualities to bet on upside here, even if they have been a little on the cold side. Verlander, it was encouraging to see 80 pitches, in his tank on start one. So could he get to 90, 95? He did have just about a 9% swing and strike rate, but I also think that was a little bit of veteran mindset, knowing that you're limited on pitches. You're going to be pitching to contact a little bit more, not so much fishing for strikeouts. 60% first pitch strike rate, a 54% usage on the fastball, which sat around 95 miles an hour, 27.5% usage of the slider, about 86, 19% usage on the curveball, around 77. All that's pretty consistent with his numbers from 2019. In 2019, the swing strike rate was 16%. So we're hoping for some progression here. But like I said, I do think we can bet on him just having that veteran mindset where he knows he's not throwing 100, 110. So he was pitching a little bit more to contact, and 7 strikeouts is a very encouraging sign. The xFIP, the Sierra, all the underlying metrics were really, really positive and encouraging. So right now, Verlander, he's up there with Tyon as the guy that I'm just going to plant my flag on. And you mentioned it, Mitch Haniger not being in that lineup. Yeah, that makes me feel better. Like he's one of their main guys to worry about.
Yeah, that's a biggie. Their best power bat. It's you could argue Winker and Suarez these days, but for me, Mitch Haniger was the top quality bat. I still think they're frisky. Like I could still get to some versions of Mariner stacks with like a Frazier, a Ty France, a Jesse Winker, Eugenio Suarez, JP Crawford and Toro. You could talk me into even Kelnick and Julio Rodriguez. I think loaded with talent through that stack, but no Mitch Haniger in the middle holding everything together definitely makes it kind of fall apart around the edges. So I don't know how much I'll get to it compared to where I thought I'd be in this spot against all that ownership on Verlander. But we're comfy. Verlander top option in the top pitchers tool on both sites, pulling negative leverage on both sites, but it's kind of a don't care situation, I think. Top option for me in terms of projection, in terms of strikeout projection and all of that. Are you kind of not really sweating the ownership and just riding with Verlander here?
Yeah, I mentioned at the top of the show, usually if I nail pitching, I'm having a great night. And if I don't, I have a bad night. Well, if Verlander and Tyon don't do well tonight, I'm having a bad night.
I think I'm going to be right there with you for sure. And not a lot of ways a bat can bail us out if those two go off the rails here. Talk to me about the bats on the Astros side. I love this lineup. I talk about them all the time. No Jordan Alvarez. He's on the COVID list. Looks like we've got a interesting version of the back end there with Nico Goodrum sneaking into the lineup. Goodrum. I don't know why I said it as Goodrum, but Nico Goodrum sneaking into the back of the lineup there. McCormick is an underrated bat back there. Jeremy Pena is a rookie that I've been inserting into some stacks to get cheap. But for me, it's all about the top 5 hitters here, really, as far as the priorities. Who are you looking at up there? Are they positively owned? Like, what are you seeing as far as this quality here?
No, I mean, so this same process got me a little trouble yesterday, but the process is the process. It's tried and tested for years now. If I log in to Awesemo and I check out our MLB Top Stacks tool and I see the Astros against Chris Flexen at a 1.8% ownership share, I'm stacking Astros, man. It is just an incredible opportunity. We have some positive leverage based on that 5.5% top stack percentage, and they just still have some quality names, even though, yeah, we'd like to get some Yordan Alvarez in our life, but Altuve, Brantley, Bregman, Tucker, Yuli Gurriel, I'll take a shot at all those. We've seen a little bit of pop out of Pena in that Angels series. Chas McCormick, he's one of those big K guys, but if you can neutralize the K numbers with a guy like Flexen and his 15% K rate to righties, yeah, I think it's a chip in a chair through and through. So it may fail yet again, but I think the process is always going to say grab any team like the Astros and their upside at 1 to 2% ownership. Just do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's these guys are just way too good. They don't strike out. If you're looking at the top of that lineup, I've got their strikeout rates from last year against both hands here. The top 5 hitters in this lineup had an average strikeout rate of 12.8% for the entire season last year. That's across a combined 2,700 plate appearances. That's insane. Yeah. They just do not strike out. They've got power. They've got everything you could possibly want. So yeah, get Astros stacks into your lineups. They're way too low owned, and don't leave out a hitter like Chas McCormick, 10.2% barrel rate, 48.7% hard hit. And Jeremy Pena, a premium prospect that they've got tucked away in the back end of this lineup that, he's the guy that came in to take Carlos Correa's job. So they obviously think something of him. Who are we threading together when we are getting to Mariner stacks, and how much are you willing to go there against Verlander with no Haniger here?
Yeah, I mean, the highest owned pitcher on the slate is not safe, and we've seen that a few times in the first week of DFS. So if I'm going to be this invested in Taillon and Verlander, yeah, I got to have some hedge stacks out there. If I'm picking on Verlander, historically what we know is he can have a home run problem because he will challenge you with those fastballs. So Jesse Winker, he hits righties, doesn't touch lefties well. He's going to have an at-bat in the first inning. I'll take a shot on that. Eugenio Suarez still showing some pop even outside of Great American Ballpark. Got into one last night. Those would be my 2 preferred options. The rest of the lineup's just kind of a little bit riskier, but there's still some power. We know Jared Kelenic has in his DNA a good player, and Ty France. I guess I would be remiss to leave him out. So I guess France, Winker, Suarez if I had to choose 3.
Yeah, I think I can get behind that. And like I said before, I do like the profile still for Kelenic. He's in a big prove it year after kind of sinking last year, but we saw some signs of life from him, down the stretch last year for little parts of that. And then Julio Rodriguez, I think, is an intriguing prospect. I don't know if you saw his inside the park home run during spring training, but anybody who can do that has a spot in at least a handful of my stacks. I also like that he's Julio Y Rodriguez in the one of the lineups that the site spit out, because it just looks like it's Julio Y Rodriguez, like he's 2 different players, and hopefully he's as good to justify 2 different names. Anything else before we move on to the last game on the docket here? And then we'll bounce around. We'll answer some questions. We'll hang out for a few extra minutes. But somebody mentioned that we needed to hit the gas pedal, so I did. Now we got some time to spare. So let's get into this Reds-Dodgers game. We've got a lot to talk about as far as Julio Urias goes. What do you make of that first game with Urias? Only 50 some odd pitches, some concerns about the velo. What are you thinking as far as he goes here? Because he's the biggest question mark on the slate for me.
Yeah. So I've got from that first start. Now it was Coors, but Coors shouldn't affect velo, at least fastball velo much. He lasted 2 innings on 57 pitches. I'm hesitant to trust more, project him more than 70 pitches here. He had no strikeouts in that first start. 6 hits allowed, 6 ground balls, 3 fly balls, just a 7% swing and strike rate. despite a respectable 69% nice first pitch strike rate. The alarming decline in velocity is the talking point here. Last year, he averaged about 94 miles an hour on the fastball. In the first start, he sat around 91.5. So there's 2 to 3 miles an hour missing on his average velocity. Use that curve, 28% change, 26%. I'm not going to overreact to the results of those pitches in Coors, but the fastball is a problem. He threw his fastball 23 times in that game, and he did not record a whiff. The only whiffs came on those curveballs and changeups. Last year, Julio had about a 21% whiff rate on fastball. So if his fastball is not what we have in our numbers from last year, right? If it's going to be missing 2-3 miles an hour of velocity, and he's not going to be able to find that punch out pitch, or at least not use that fastball the way he was, I think that's concerning. So this is probably where I'm getting different than the slate, because he's grabbing pretty decent ownership, about 25% owned. So if I can be different than 1 in every 4 lineups by full fading him with some of my concerns about his velo and even his pitch count, he's always a guy we worried about going deep anyway. I am. So I'm right now probably standing on a full fade of Urias, and I don't know, unless he finds 2-3 miles an hour in 5 days. I'm just gonna use that as a big red flag.
Yeah, that's really, really concerning to me. Not, by all accounts, healthy. He came out of that game saying, "Hey, I'm healthy. Don't worry about it. Don't sweat it." Which is typically what we see these pitchers say immediately before we start hearing about elbow tenderness and God knows what else. I'm really concerned. He also threw 185 and 2/3 innings last season. That was more than double what he's ever thrown in a season before. There's just all sorts of indicators that could lead us to some problems here. I'm hoping he's not injured. I'm not saying he is, but there are definitely some concerns, and maybe it's just a buildup issue. Maybe the arm strength isn't there yet, but that velo has got me terrified. It's not in my model, which is the problem, because he still projects out like he's the Julio Urias from last year. So I'm working with my sort right now, and I'm kind of at that decision point now, because he is my top owned pitcher if I just go by the results I'm given here, but I don't trust it based on that. There's no real threat. I don't worry about this Reds lineup against him. They're not the biggest strikeout lineup in the world, but there's enough on the bone there for him to get a few strikeouts if he's himself. I'm not really worried about the sequential hitting with this lineup or anything like that. It would be a decent spot for him, except for that question mark. So 2 questions on that. Are you getting to any Reds bats? And then since we're talking about the Reds, we might as well mention the Hunter Green plays for the Reds. He's a premium prospect, and he'll be pitching against the Los Angeles Dodgers tonight.
Yeah, I am. I mentioned I have some stake on Taylor Hearn over 3.5 strikeouts. I actually took a shot on Urias under 5 strikeouts. The problem is right now we don't have the lineup but I can't imagine it's gonna be too different than what is projected. And this is a team that's been pesky against Walker Buehler and some pitchers that we know have been kind of picking up where they left off. So I'm getting to the Reds. It's double edged sword here. It's doubling down on my stance that I don't know that Urias is a 10K pitcher today. And also if he can't miss bats, I think we might be able to grab that really, really low owned stack against one of the highest owned pitchers on the slate. We're getting about a 2% ownership share versus a 4.5% top stack percentage. So even though it's minuscule positive leverage, it's still positive leverage on a short slate. So yeah, I am getting to some Reds. I just wish I knew who. Give me that lineup, Cincy.
Yeah, the projected I'm looking at with them and Aristides Aquino up at the top, with Stevenson up there, Senzel in the middle of it. I assume Joey Votto, despite a lefty, but that righty heavy top 3, I think, makes a lot of sense in one of the projected models. So I'm looking to grab some of those hitters. Aristides Aquino, I think, that power, if we believe in what we've seen from that power from time to time, could be intriguing up there. Tommy Pham is a 2020 player when he's going right, when he's healthy. So I don't mind getting to some of them. And if I'm attacking the ownership on the pitcher that I don't really believe in, I think it is under-owned and intriguing there, like you were saying. So that makes some sense. As far as Hunter Green goes, he's 7.1% owned on DK at 7,500. Under 5% owned at 6,500 on FanDuel. I'm not getting a good projection for him. It's largely matchup based. I do think he's a talented prospect. I do think he's going to have a nice, season for us in spots. I just don't think this is the spot going up against, even without Mookie Betts in the lineup, just a loaded Dodgers lineup.
Yeah. I could be, if I wanted to absolutely be devil's advocate, it is encouraging that he got to 92 pitches. He has ridiculous velocity, average almost 100 miles an hour on his fastball, backed up by a slider. But this is just a really talented Dodgers team. And if you're going to use one pitch 60% of the time, even if it's a high quality pitch, they can start cheating on that fastball. And guys like Freddie Freeman, lead off Trey Turner, like, it's a really tough lineup to get through and get around. I have 5% of them on FanDuel and 6% on DraftKings. So I'm not all the way out on them because I do believe in some of the strikeout stuff, but I also want to say that's also kind of those stacks against Verlander, stacks against some of my higher owned pitchers, Orioles, stuff like that, to kind of get away from and hedge the lineups that I am taking a big stake on pitchers.
Makes some sense. And then as far as guys toward the back end of the lineup, because we do have just a whole ton of ownership on those top guys that you mentioned, the Turners, the Freemans of the world. Justin Turner at hitting third is a little inexpensive and maybe an ownership offset point from the top of the lineup. And then we get into a back end that's Edwin Rios, Chris Taylor, Cody Bellinger, Gavin Lux, Austin Barnes, all in the single digits as far as ownership goes, unless you want to count Edwin Rios on FanDuel at 15 and change. But talk to me about those guys. Are you willing to thread together some of those back end hitters, former MVP like Cody Bellinger, like you said, against a guy who, if he's going to be throwing 60% fastballs, I trust Cody Bellinger still to be able to eventually figure that out over 3 plate appearances and maybe give us a knock here. Are you getting any of those back end guys to offset some of that popularity in stacks?
Yeah, Belly and Lux were the two that I was getting the most of, but I'm with you on Bellinger. He can cheat fastball, turn it around. It's already shown us a little bit of pop, although he hasn't proven himself all the way yet. But yeah, he still has. He's as good once as he once was, right?
Yeah. I mean, we know it's there, right? Like this was one of the best hitters in the game just a couple years ago. It's a lot like Christian Yelich, where I just believe that it's still there, and I believe he's going to figure it out one day because I've seen it. I know that it's real. So yeah, that's a guy I'm willing to go back to until completely proven wrong. And sometimes I have trouble jumping off of those ships, but sometimes they can pay off too if nobody else is there. So let's see. Jump over to the chat, see if we've got any questions that have come up over the last few minutes. Let's see. Why did Julio Urias's eyes look so weird on the ESPN website?
Because I mean, that's a medical condition. He basically has one eye, but he has okay. Google
is that right?
Yeah. He's
okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that he had a one eye condition. I'm glad I didn't make like a Popeye joke and walk into like a Chris Rock.
Yeah, that would have been a problem.
That would have been way inappropriate if I had said something like that. Let's see if anybody in the Discord has any questions. 5-3 stacks, or should I get a one-off for single entry? You like 5-3s, you go full, or you like to grab one-offs?
Just like if I pop open a slate, my go-to is 5-2, but I think all that is personal preference. But yeah. I'm more of a five, min 5 and then 5-2s.
Yeah, I typically go, I'm a FanDuel player for the most part, and so I'm typically going 4-4s and 4-3s. I dabble from time to time with like 3-3-2 or 3-3-1-1 constructions, and most of those nights my results don't seem quite as good as they were on other nights. Maybe one of those will spike, to a high point, but yeah, typically for me, I'm looking to grab the full correlation. I'm looking to grab the full stacks and go from there. And I'm just piecing together some of my lineups here. And
yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to come back for these Reds.
Yeah, I think that's
hopefully
the plan.
There's no changes.
Yeah, we've got a few hours on that one at least. Everybody was waiting on that one. That's weird too. Aren't they the team that always had it out at like 10 a.m. last year? Wasn't that the Reds? I feel like it was. Maybe I'm making that up, but yeah, 10 o'clock game out on the West Coast, 10 o'clock Eastern time. So plenty of time to mess with lineups and figure that one out. Let's see. Yep, looks like the Reds lineup just dropped, so we'll see what's in it. See if it popped up in Discord. Yep. So we got a completely different lineup.
No way.
Kyle Farmer up top, followed by lefty Tyler Naquin, Tommy Pham, Joey Votto, Tyler Stevenson, Aquino batting 6th, Moose batting 7th, Brandon Drury, Jake Fraley to round it out. That's a hell of a lineup the Reds are rolling out. Does that change anything about wanting to get to this Red stack for you? Does it change anything about the Urias read? Let's say you expect 5 innings from Urias, does he get through that a little bit cleaner than he would have in the other configuration we were expecting?
So, I mean, he could get through innings for sure, but my concern is the velo on the fastball not being as effective. So we're searching strikeouts, and even if he's inducing contact that results in outs, he's still not showing the strikeout propensity. So he's probably overpriced unless you believe that the strikeouts are on the way or that this lineup just truly sucks, which that's not a crazy thought. A Naquin batting second, like that's a very weird line. It was definitely an unexpected line.
I definitely was not expecting Tyler Naquin lefty hitting second there.
Exactly.
That's for sure. That's a weird one. So yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. Favorite stack from this slate? Who's coming up top on stack for you?
So I have split the Coors down at 16 and 17%, which is a little below the field. But it just shows I'm trying to be a little bit diverse and just hope that pitching and then staying away from Urias is the positive leverage I need. And then behind that, might be a little bit more biased, but I have Yankees quite a bit. And then past that is just kind of a spray and pray on Cardinals, Brewers, the Dodgers, Rangers, Angels.
Yeah, it's kind of a loaded stack in terms of having some of the best groups of hitters in baseball with the Yanks, with the Dodgers up there. We talked about the Cardinals. We both like them a lot, at least, in that core of premium hitters. So definitely an interesting slate for offense. Did you come up with Verlander as your top on Verlander Taillon like you were expecting as your top two?
Yeah, I have them split down 40% each on FanDuel and then 5% on like Matt Green, all those other guys that are not Urias. And then on DraftKings, I have them both capped at 60% and then just spraying a little piece of ownership on Steven Matz, Taylor Hearn, and Hunter Green.
Okay. I'm just dropping a few additional. I'm trying to get through this sort, and I pulled most of the Urias that was up at the top. I left a few of them in, but now I've got to move some around and try and duck and dodge around this. So I have no idea what my actual percentages going in here are, but I'm going to have a hell of a lot of Yankee stacks. Looks like I'll have a good amount of Astros stacks in here, which is a plus. Got some Cards names that I'm seeing as I go through here. Definitely a ton of Yankees. And yeah, a ton of Taillon, ton of Verlander for me. A little bit of dabbling in the Urias world, but it's primarily around those two. And then, I whittled everybody else down to the single digit kind of exposures. We're clicking upload. Hopefully we didn't include players who aren't in the starting lineups. That's always fun to go hunting for after the fact. And we're good. We're uploaded there. So any final thoughts, Gun, to bring us to the end here, the last couple of minutes on the show here? It looks like we've got no real questions in the chat outside of that red lineup came up. Any final thoughts to bring us home?
No, I'm just anticipating a slate that really isn't made or broken by pitching, hopefully, and then a couple of inning eaters and a couple of 12 to 16 fantasy points on DK, and just kind of hoping for Urias to, if not fully fail, just not be worth his price and ownership.
Just come out. Hopefully his velo's back, but he only pitches like 4 innings and doesn't have a huge fantasy performance, but it's a good sign for his future. Like that's kind of what I'm rooting for him today. Favorite, you got a favorite low owned or cheap bat that's like potentially a slate winner for you that you want to shout out real quick? Maybe somebody from the bomb detector that's sneaking by everybody else's radar. Who's like low owned that's kind of sneaky today?
Odor's up there, right? Yikes, of course he is.
Sure.
He's fourth in the home run model. I do see there's a slight rain delay in that Orioles game, but it shouldn't be a problem. So look out for that. Not everyday names on the top of the bomb detector would be McCutchen, Rougned Odor. That's really it. All these other guys are pretty obvious.
All right. I'll throw as some of my low-owned sneaky guys, I'll just throw in that entire Texas lineup that for some reason is getting big power marks against Thor in my home run model. I'm not ultra confident in it. I haven't been able to figure out why it is, but maybe some Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. Corey Seager was my home run call. Adolis Garcia, we talked about liking him, and Cole Calhoun maybe a little sneaky from the back end of that lineup. Not the most confidence in it in the world, though. Jesse Winker looks like a decent home run call from near the top of the board there, too. So we'll round it out with that, guys. Make sure to hit the like, hit the subscribe. I probably skipped a whole bunch of business that I was supposed to read. Let's hit that real quick. USFL. We've got USFL projections. I did mention at the top of the show. It's $14.95. Makijeski's projections for USFL. If you've ever followed Makijeski for college football or anything else, I shouldn't have to sell that to you guys too hard. Check that out on the site. USFL launch this weekend. Should be a lot of fun. Hit the like and the subscribe. We've got a ton of content coming tomorrow. NBA strategy show, MLB live before lock, NASCAR live before lock, and NBA live before lock all through the day tomorrow. So check that stuff out, guys. We appreciate you hanging out.